So good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Hatzadony. I'm the Program Chair for Homeland Security at Rob Don Academy, and I want to thank KICRA for the invitation today, particularly being involved in the very first KICRA conference and Criminology conference here in the Gulf region. It's very, very exciting to always be part of one of the first conferences, particularly in this field. And I'm going to talk today about a number of things, and I want to thank Dr. Fatima for going first, because I think her introducing benign AI, I think is extremely important in how we're dealing with the intersection of financial crime and technology. And so I'm going to start off with a story, and I was joking with some colleagues earlier about this. This was completely unplanned. So if you recognize anyone, or perhaps yourself in this story, don't feel bad. It can happen to anyone. It almost happened to me. So let me tell you about my friend Khalid. That's not his real name, but his story is very real, and it could happen to any of us. Khalid is a finance manager, mid-sized company here in the Gulf, experienced, careful, security conscious, does all his trainings. He's the kind of person who updates his passwords regularly. He's skeptical of the unsolicited messages, checks his emails to make sure that they're real. He thinks he knows how to spot a scam. Last Thursday evening, he got an SMS that looked exactly like it came from his bank. Suspicious activity detected on your account. Verify your identity immediately to prevent unauthorized access. The message had the bank's logo. The link went to what looked like the bank's website. Same colors, same layout, same security badges. Even the URL looked right at first glance. He entered his credentials, got a one-time password on his phone. He entered that too. And 15 minutes later, Khalid's account was empty of 127,000 dirhams. Gone. What happened in those 15 minutes? Criminals used his credentials to access his account. They added their own device for authentication. They initiated transfers to 3 different accounts. The money hit those accounts and immediately split into smaller amounts across 12 digital wallets. Within an hour, it was being converted to cryptocurrency. By Friday morning, when Khalid checked his balance, the funds had been layered through mixing services and were sitting untraceable privacy coins across multiple continents. But here's what should keep us all up at night. Every single account that Khalid's money touched looked legitimate. Every platform saw what appeared to be a normal transaction. The identities that received those initial transfers had verified bank accounts, transaction histories, social media profiles, and employment records. Those identities were also completely fake. Synthetic identity, ghosts in the machine that looked real to every verification system they touched. And this is the new convergence of financial crime, where FinTech platforms, cryptocurrency, and synthetic identification come together to create fraud schemes that were impossible 5 years ago. And it's happening right here in our region, to our residents, and through our modern financial system. So let me break down what's happening in the region right now, because we're at the epicenter of something unprecedented. It's technology-driven, clearly. We've embraced digital finance at a faster rate than almost anywhere else on earth. Mobile payments now account for over 80% of transactions in the United Arab Emirates. KSA's FinTech marketing is heading towards $3.5 billion per year. Digital wallets went from novelty to necessity in 3 years. And if you're not using multiple FinTech apps daily, you're probably in the minority. This is deliberate, strategic, smart. Our push for financial inclusion, economic diversification, positioning ourselves as a global digital finance hub. It's working. We're seeing real results, more people with access to financial services, more innovation, more competition driving better products. But every innovation in convenience is also an innovation in criminal opportunity, and we're learning this the hard way. Traditional bank fraud generally takes days, sometimes weeks. FinTech fraud can take minutes. Khalid's 127,000 dirhams disappeared in 15 minutes. Think about that. 15 minutes, that's less time than my presentation is going to take. That's not unusual. It's typical in our markets now. Account takeover fraud happens so fast that by the time victims realize something's wrong, it's over. And the methods are getting more sophisticated. Let me tell you about what that SMS that Khalid received actually represented, because it happened to me. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had a much smarter wife, I probably would have been taken for a lot more money too. This isn't some amateur operation. The criminals had done their homework on our banking systems. They researched the bank's communication style, the exact wording they use, the format of their security alerts. They registered domain names that were one letter off from the real bank's domain. Some are even so sophisticated that now they're taking one letter, generally an English O, and converting it to a Cyrillic O. You'll never, ever be able to detect it because it is so close, but it will just divert everything. They obtained SSL certificates so that the fake site showed the padlock icon in the browser. They even scraped the bank's actual website daily to ensure the fake site matched any updates to the real design. The timing wasn't random either. Thursday evening after business hours, when fraud detection teams are running skeleton crews, we're getting ready for the weekend, people are tired from work, much less vigilant. What if when something goes wrong, there's a whole weekend before anyone notices? And here's what makes this particularly insidious. The criminals know that security-conscious people like Khalid, people like us, are more likely to respond to security alerts. This caution, this learning, this taking security seriously is actually making some of us better targets. And here's what really matters, because Khalid wasn't targeted individually. He was one of hundreds in the region that are hit by the same network in 1 week. These criminals run operations at scale. They send out thousands of SMS messages to Gulf phone numbers, maintaining dozens of fake websites for our banks, operating networks of synthetic identity accounts ready to receive funds from our financial systems. They've even automated part of the process. They capture credentials, software immediately logs in, adds their devices, initiates transfers, all faster than any human could do the work. They're using the same automation and efficiency principles that our legitimate FinTech companies use, but for crime. And it's not just individuals being hit. Let me give you an example of what happens to corporations. Criminal networks use compromised Emirates ID numbers, our identification documents in the UAE, to create synthetic identities and then open accounts at 6 different buy now, pay later, or BNPL platforms across the GCC. For 3 months, each identity was the model customer. Small purchases, immediate payments, building credit history, trust scores. Then on the same day, after a few months, a coordinated attack takes place. They max out every credit line. Electronics, luxury goods, jewelry, over 180,000 dirhams per identity. The goods were sold to gray market dealers within hours online, 60 cents on the dollar, but still that's a 60% return on your investment. Still substantial cash. The identities vanish. Not a single installment payment was ever made on those final purchases. Total losses exceeded 4.5 million dirhams before the platforms even realized that they had been hit. And what made this possible? The same factors. Digital speed, siloed platforms, synthetic ID that look completely legitimate in our systems. At the enterprise level, it gets even bigger. Last year, criminals compromised the CFO's email at a major Gulf construction firm, one of our companies operating in our markets. They didn't do anything immediately. They just watched. For weeks, they studied email patterns, payment cycles, vendor relationships, who talks to whom, and how they talk to one another. Then they struck. They sent carefully crafted invoice instructions to the firm's clients, redirecting $3.8 million US to accounts they controlled. The emails were perfect, same writing style, same signatures, reference ongoing projects. Some of the clients even had the previous email threads spread throughout the email so they could trace back everything. Within hours, literally hours, that money fragmented across peer-to-peer platforms, converted to cryptocurrency, and vanished into DeFi protocols by the time anyone noticed the trail was cold. That's $3.8 million US from our businesses and the financial ecosystem. I think I'm on. Here's what cryptocurrency did for criminals. It democratized money laundering. It used to require infrastructure, shell companies, complicit bankers, accountants, real estate deals, trade networks. Now, a laptop and an internet connection. They can move millions across borders in minutes, obscure the trail through mixing services, convert to untraceable privacy coins, and cash out somewhere far from where the crime happened. So how does this work? Well, let's go back to Khalid's case. Those initial 3 accounts that received his money, within minutes, they purchased cryptocurrency through 3 different exchanges, carefully staying below the reporting threshold at each one. One account bought $15,000 in Bitcoin, another bought $18,000 in Ethereum, and a third bought $12,000 in Tether, okay? All small enough not to trigger any automatic reviews at the exchanges. The crypto immediately moves to intermediate wallets, addresses that exist solely to create distance between the purchase and the next step. Then it goes through a mixing service. These are platforms that combine thousands of transactions from different sources, fragment them into random amounts, and redistribute them to new addresses. So imagine you're taking all of your cash, and we're all getting together, and we're throwing all our cash in a pile. And then we take all our cash back out in the same amount. What was the original amount, and what was the original money that went in there? That's what's happening now. The value was the same, but the trail is now broken digitally. Then, to add an extra layer of security onto this, they convert to Monero, a privacy coin specifically designed to be untraceable. Unlike Bitcoin, where you can see the transaction history on the blockchain, Monero obscures sender, receiver, and amount. Okay, it's like switching from a transparent pipe where you can see the water flowing to an opaque one where you can't see anything happening within there. It then moves through decentralized finance protocols without any central authority, without KYC or know your customer requirements, without regulatory oversight. These DeFi protocols let you swap between different cryptocurrencies, lend, borrow, and move funds across blockchain networks, all without the institution watching. Finally, it lands at exchanges in jurisdictions with weak enforcement, converts to fiat currency, or cash again, and withdraws into regular bank accounts. And at this point, connecting those final withdrawals back to Khalid's stolen dirhams is nearly impossible. The blockchain has been deliberately obscured. It's across multiple networks. It's been mixed with thousands of other transactions. And there's one thing that should terrify all of us. This entire process, from Khalid's account in Dubai to the clean cash in Eastern Europe, took less than 72 hours. 3 days. Traditional international money laundering investigations can sometimes take months or even years. Okay? I know, I've worked them. I've seen it happen. Okay? This is way too fast for any human being to be able to stop or track. So why are we particularly vulnerable? The region faces a number of vulnerabilities with cryptocurrency. First, we have rapid FinTech adoption, creating criminal proceeds that need laundering. The more successful our FinTech platforms become, the more attractive they are as fraud targets, and the more cryptocurrency is needed to launder the proceeds. Second, geography. Our position connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe, that makes us a center of historical trade, also makes us a very attractive hub for illicit crypto flows, bridging geographical and regulatory jurisdictions. Our position at the crossroads means that criminals can easily move funds from Asian cryptocurrency exchanges through our financial systems to Eastern European cash-out points. And third, our wealth concentration and luxury markets. Crypto criminals need off-ramps, ways to convert digital assets back to usable wealth. Our luxury real estate, high-end automotive sector, art markets, jewelry, these are ideal conversion opportunities. When someone wants to cash out millions in Bitcoin from FinTech, our property markets look very, very attractive. No questions asked, cash accepted, property prices that can absorb large transactions, not really raising any eyebrows. Third, now here's the clever part, and this is what's changed a lot. Those three accounts that Khalid's money, they weren't stolen identities in the traditional sense, or what we've experienced over the past 10, 15 years. These were synthetic identities. There's something far more sophisticated. This is where criminals have genuinely innovated. Stolen identities are risky, so the real person might notice fraudulent activity and report it. But synthetic identities, these are ghosts. Nobody's checking on them because nobody real corresponds to them. This is how you build a synthetic identity. Criminals take a real ID number, often from a child or a deceased person who won't be using the credit system. Okay? Children, particularly attractive, they're not going to be using the system for probably 15 to 18 years. Okay? Gives you a long window to build up this online identity. They pair this number with a fake name, fabricated employment, and generated email addresses. And then, this is crucial, they don't immediately commit fraud. They spend months, perhaps even a year, okay, building legitimacy in the financial system. They create social media profiles. They post regularly. They open small bank accounts and maintain positive balances. They get jobs at shell companies online, digitally, for companies that only exist to provide employment verification. They apply for small credit lines, make perfect payments, they pay their utility bills, they build credit scores in our credit bureaus. And in Khalid's case, those three synthetic identities had been alive in the financial system for over 6 months. Okay? They had jobs at shell companies, they made regular payments, they bought coffee, groceries, gas, they paid utility bills on time. They had credit scores in the 600s, better than mine, I think. When his money arrived, the accounts looked like normal people in our community receiving normal payments, maybe a freelancer getting paid, maybe someone selling a car. Nothing suspicious in the system. Why does this matter? Because traditional fraud detection looks for suspicious patterns in real people's behavior. If your account suddenly receives a huge transfer from someone you've never transacted with, the system is going to red flag that. Synthetic IDs have no legitimate pattern to deviate from. Their entire existence is fraudulent, so everything they do looks normal. They're designed to pass our verification systems. They're in the databases, they have transaction histories, and they look like real people to every automated system that checks them. Now imagine these three systems working together in the market. That's what happened to poor Khalid. And it's the new standard operating procedure for criminal networks targeting the region. They create portfolios of synthetic ID, sometimes hundreds. Each identity opens accounts at multiple FinTech platforms. They build transaction histories that look completely normal, and then they activate. They launch phishing campaigns that target our residents to capture credentials for account takeover fraud. The proceeds flow into synthetic ID accounts that appear completely legitimate. Money fragments across dozens of accounts using instant payment apps popular in the region, and then converts to cryptocurrency through exchanges. The layers through mixing devices and DeFi protocols, finally cashing out in jurisdictions around the world. Some operations are running 500 plus synthetic IDs across 15 to 20 platforms. Why does this matter? They are not opportunistic criminals working from internet cafes. They are sophisticated operations with org charts, KPIs, performance metrics, and they look more like tech startups than a traditional criminal enterprise. The network that hit Khalid, they stole over 2.3 million from the region in a single month using the same playbook, and they're still operating in our markets. So why do our defenses fail? We have three things that we have to deal with. One is a speed mismatch. Okay? The compliance systems were built for banking timelines and days for transaction reviews, weeks for investigations. Okay? This stuff happens in 36 hours, money's gone in 72. Okay? The alert was accurate after a while, but it's just completely useless by the time, and there's no way we're going to recover the money. We have a siloed view problem. This is the killer because all of our platforms have one piece of the puzzle and they're not networking and they can't share information. This is what happened in Khalid's case. His bank saw what appeared to be authorized transfers, but only when you view it collectively does a fraud pattern emerge. Okay? And then think about the synthetic identity accounts. Each one had accounts at 5 different FinTech platforms operating there. 15 different relationships. Okay? We've created a financial system where criminals operate in the gaps between the platforms. Finally, we also have an expertise gap. Okay? I've been in meetings where 30-year banking veterans are trying to understand what a liquidity pool is or how yield farming works, DeFi protocols. Okay? These are problems that we're still struggling to deal with. And I knew I had way too much information, so we're just going to jump to the end. Criminals aren't waiting. They're looking for easier targets. Okay? Just remember that any human reviewer might miss those connections. One of the advantages that we can leverage is machine learning here in the future. And defensive innovation actually looks like, for us, it needs to look like best practice in this region. A criminal needs to try and open a synthetic ID account at one of our neobanks, and the account approval is going to be fast, say 2 minutes instead of 90 seconds. But in that 2 minutes, we might just be able to flag the system and capture and hold things up. One of the issues that we're going to have to deal with is that the user experience is going to have to be managed. After 30 days, we might be able to lift holds, but overall, we're going to have to eventually slow down some of the crime that's taking place and manage this user experience. Criminal networks need to be disrupted, and it's a path that positions us for leadership in the digital economy for the next 20 years. Let me be clear what happens if we don't act. Financial losses are going to grow exponentially. We're already seeing 30 to 40% annual increases in account takeover fraud. Okay? That's citizen money. It's reputational damage. It's erosion of public trust. I'm sure I'm out of time there. So I'm going to say thank you right there. I appreciate everyone's time and patience with the fact that I had way too much information to share, and hopefully they're going to share the overall slides with you later. But thank you again. I appreciate it.